first just stand here as it is and see how it feels. I mean, you would be okay.
I'm sort of okay.
Try this.
Yeah. I like that a little
This
better.
microphone, you don't have to touch.
Okay,
or move.
just everything.
You know, if you're going to be up there, I guess that would be.
You like that better?
It's one of those microphones that picks up people from a long distance away.
Fantastic.
Some
Don't,
microphones
yeah, I
you
don't have to
give-
lean in. Okay, none of that. I appreciate all that. Good. Okay. Thank you.
So Mike doesn't need this, but he could. put it
Right,
down
but I'll
for
pull
you.
it down when I come up. I love
do it
that.
for you.
You're so great. Thank you and thank you. You're a pro, aren't you? You done this?
Yeah. I'll try to find it. Community to hear tonight's readings. Welcome. We're happy to have you. All the Summer Fishtrap registrants had a big day today. We have workshops and craft talks and open mics, which was full and great. And then tonight we all celebrate together, getting to hear some of our Summer Fishtrap instructors. This will be a great one. Oh, and I also want to welcome all of you folks watching out there in internet land at fishtrap.org or on Fishtrap's YouTube channel. We're happy to have you here too. Okay, let's just get right down to the action, eh? Our first reader is also a first-time Summer Fishtrap instructor. Ana Maria Spagna, as we've been talking for a year or two, and finally it happened. Here you are. Excuse me, it's just been wonderful to get to know Ana Maria a little bit, and she's been having a great time teaching you folks, and I think you folks have too. Listen to this. Ana Maria Spagna is a former trail crew laborer whose work explores the intersections of nature, community, queerness, and social justice in the American West. Her books have been recognized by the River Teeth Literary Nonfiction Prize, Washington State Book Awards, and the Society of Environmental Journalists, and her newest, due out in November, is Coiled, Essays on Urgency and Kinship. Her writing has appeared in Orion, Fourth Genre, Ecotone, Terrain.org, Brevity, and elsewhere. I'm sure a lot of places. She teaches at Wenatchee Valley College and in the graduate program in creative writing at Western Colorado University, and she lives with her wife Lori and a cat Maybell in the North Cascades. Give a warm Summer Fishtrap welcome to Ana Maria Spagna.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Mike, and thanks to everyone. What an honor it is to be here in this beautiful place and with all of you in this community that has been nurtured for so long. I just met Victoria, who comes from Portland just for these evening readings. I met Janice, who's been here 21 years, I understand, and my workshop participants especially, who have nurtured me for 2 days already. I'm honored to read with my dear, dear friend, Laura Pritchett, and with my new friend, Tim Hernandez. And I'm going to read an excerpt from the new book that's coming out. This is an essay called Out of the Box. And it's about fishers, a fisher reintroduction in the North Cascades. And if you don't know, fishers are mustelids. They are a little bit bigger than mink or marten and a little bit smaller than wolverines. And if I'm wrong about that, there's a biologist here named Paula who can set me straight. Fishers are also badasses. Like, they are the only known predator of porcupines. They can eviscerate a porcupine. They will also eat house cats, which upsets people, but we're not worried about that. We're glad that they are native to the North Cascades and that they have been reintroduced there. And I will admit that my wife, Lori, and I knew none of this. In the December of 2019, a very, very rainy, gray day. Our life was not going super great. We had just taken her parents, moved them into an assisted living place. We'd had a little bit of a rough fall, and we heard rumor of this reintroduction happening. And so we said, let's go. And we went up this crazy, winding, potholed, muddy logging road out of Darrington, Washington. And at some point we realized we were following like an F-250 and there were crates in the back and we were, oh my God, those are the fishers. Like, those are them. And we started getting giddy with excitement. We were like, maybe they have names. like maybe they're named Celeste or Stephen, do you think? And we just had each other in hysterics, and then we calmed down. We're like, you don't name wild animals. We're here for a real purpose. And we showed up and we found out they were indeed named. They were named for Harry Potter characters. It could not get better than this. The only thing that made it better, and I'll tell you one thing before I start the excerpts, is that an old friend of ours named Phyllis Reed was there. And Phyllis was, I wanted to call her a heroine of the Spotted Owl Wars, a wildlife biologist who worked for years and years. I was talking to my new friend Paula, and she said she was a force. So I want you to know that Phyllis Reed, who appears briefly in this essay, was a force. And without further ado, I'm going to jump right in. The fishers are coming out of those boxes. The first fisher, whose name may have been Hermione or Minerva, scampered out fast as she could, so fast. We only caught a glimpse of her fur, a rich calico cat color, orange, brown, or rust with some black, fuzzy, and if I didn't know better, cuddly. And did I mention fast? An orange-brown swish over matted moss and downed logs, under the brush, up a steep hill, out of view. She'd be fine, probably. So far, Jason Ransom and his team had released 26 fishers in the North Cascades, and they'd seen very little mortality. They insert radio trackers under the fishers' fur, and then they track them via aircraft. The fishers have roamed for many, many miles. They cross interstates and swim major rivers. You can tell this one could or will just by the way she speeds out of that box like a thoroughbred trained for the starting gate. If there is any trepidation among her fellow fishers or us, the watchers, you can't feel it in the air. Everything for those 3 seconds is pure euphoria. There she goes. I admit that when the biologist described how veterinarians at the Calgary Zoo surgically inserted the radio trackers, I cringed. My knee-jerk, never been to vet school reaction is to think, why hurt the animals this way? Just leave them the hell alone. I am hyper-trained to judge each necessary trade-off. The huge carbon footprint, all that Jet A fuel, not to mention all of us driving up this rain-rutted road. But it is so easy to shut the monkey brain off because here comes another. Lickety-split, she's out and climbs a tree I would later call 300 feet tall because boy howdy did it seem that tall. If she decides to stay, Jason tells us, she'll nest in the hole of a pileated woodpecker because it's big enough for her to fit in with her babies, but not big enough for the male who will, if allowed, eat the babies. More badassedness. This fisher climbs to the highest limb, higher than my neck can crane to see. Even a guy with a camera lens, long as my forearm, can't see her. I'm not sure if she is hiding, but if she is, who can blame her? Urgency has 2 definitions. 1, Importance requiring swift action. 2, an earnest and persistent quality, persistence. They butt up against each other clumsily. I have always believed in patient persistence, but patience can be a kind of hiding. I have aspired to act swiftly with courage to make good trouble, as John Lewis always said. But I have not wanted to be shackled to that idea either, since this peculiarly American brand of hot-blooded desire, big, fast change, has so often spawned what we might call bad trouble. Economic megagrowth, expanding empire, bloody revolution. Or when it's not achieved, disappointment, discouragement, apathy, at worst, despondency. Which brings me to what had been the biggest challenge in our lives, Lori's and mine, for several months. Neither aging parents nor the incompetent president and his heinous cronies, but Lori's apple trees. They are dying. To be clear, they are not actually Lori's apple trees, they are yours. They belong to the National Park Service, all 400 or so of them. Most are nearing 100 years old, and over time, as they have slowly begun to die, Lori has planted and nurtured new trees, and now it's the young trees that are afflicted by a fungus, Botrispharia, which is, yes, killing them. The fungus may have been invited by global warming, too much wet weather in winter, or by overwatering, or by pruning in cold weather, or by replanting in the same place. At night, Lori blames herself. She's planted these trees in succession for 25 years. She wanted them to replace the old trees, to grow and thrive long after her own death. Instead, she watches them wither. Talk about cause for despondency. She saw a therapist who suggested radical acceptance. Lori understands the need to let go. She is trying. It is excruciating. Another fisher is released, and one more, until only one remains. The final fisher is named Dolores. And this seems auspicious, since Lori once had this nickname. So when they asked for volunteers to open the sliding door, Lori raised her hand. Now, Lori slides the door open and nothing happens. Dolores comes to the door, sniffs the air, and stops cold. Phyllis Reed, in her Santa hat, kneels to blow down into the air vent, hoping to annoy Dolores just enough. Will she choose to escape or endure this eternal huffing? We're waiting, and on my phone recording, you can hear me urging her out. Come on, Dolores. Go, Dolores. My voice is uncharacteristically high, as though I am sweet-talking a kitten, not a creature that rips the guts from a porcupine. Lori kneels down to spell Phyllis. This is the moment I return to in my memory over and over. The doors sliding up, the crowd expectant, the needles dripping. And then, midway through writing this essay, COVID-19 arrives. I moved back home to the woods, a place that has always felt safe but no longer does, when no place could be. Over the mountains at the assisted living facility where we moved Lori's folks, a patient tests positive. In California, my mom closed the food pantry she runs, since nearly all of her volunteers are over 60 and therefore high risk. I call her daily, and we play Boggle online. A friend's father dies, and I buy a gift card. Tom Petty plays on repeat night and day. The waiting is the hardest part. This is where we stand for now, all of us everywhere while I write and before you read, pre-scamper, the door open, breath held, wide-eyed, waiting to see what will happen next. Later, after the fishes were released, Lori and I hung around and tried to make small talk, but it was hard, honestly, to make the small talk big enough. How cool is that? We said over and over. We chatted with the biologists, Kitty with exhaustion, up since before dawn, who still had to pack their empty crates and drive many miles back to headquarters or God knows where. Later still, I sent my short, shaky fisher videos to my friend Julie, who teaches elementary school in Southern California, and she showed them to her 30 grade schoolers. Her excitement, near weepy, echoed my own. Kids who knew nothing about fishers now knew about fishers. How cool is that? As I wrote about the reintroduction, what moved me to tears, besides the fishers, was the sheer effort of all those people fighting so hard day after day until a seemingly small thing became a big thing. The meeting attendees, the paper pushers, the helicopter pilots, the pickup truck drivers waiting at the border crossing, the vets with their probes and scalpels. Did I wish I lived in an era when fishers were just allowed to be fishers and never had to be relocated? Hell yes. I also wish I lived in a country where people didn't have to live in the river bottom and line up for grocery sacks of peanut butter and canned green beans. But even though it sounded like yet another church sermon cliche, I felt grateful for everyone who showed up on Tuesdays and Fridays. The battle against inertia is not a solitary effort. The answer to the first definition of urgency, I wrote, importance requiring swift action, lies in the second, earnest persistence. That was 6 weeks ago. A lifetime. I knew nothing. I could not imagine a time when urgent persistence would require staying home to distance ourselves from loved ones, to watch death counts and wait for a flattened curve. Make no mistake, small acts of goodness continue apace. The quarantine for Lori's parents had eased because the one lone case was properly isolated and treated. My mom's pantry remained closed, but other local agencies recruited young volunteers. But it's impossible not to note how that urgency feels way, way more urgent. I realize now that every time I thought about the fishers, I saw myself as one of the benevolent, godlike liberators, when in fact, we're all creatures at the mercy of the universe. We're in boxes. The boxes of our homes, yes, yes, crates or hellholes, depending on the situation or sometimes the time of day. But that's not what I mean. My box is everything I used to believe, how I moved in the world, all that gave me identity and safety. I know I need to let it go. I am trying. It is excruciating. How is it possible that in the urgency of now, much of what's asked of us is radical acceptance? And what about when it's time to be liberated? Who will we be? What will we do? Will it be enough to care for elders and apple trees, to manage a food pantry, to nurture fishers and teach kids about them, to practice kindness? Or will anger serve us better? Should we spend our empty hours nurturing fierceness like a contagion aimed to eviscerate injustice and greed? To fight or not to fight? The answer is yes and yes. I mean, what would a fisher do? Sometime last winter, I posted the Dolores video on Facebook. I couldn't help it. Now, whenever I return to that particular cyber hellhole, which has become, more than ever, a lifeline and a pall, chock full of stories of heinous incompetence and spontaneous grace, I can watch again as Lori pulls up the door and nothing happens. Dolores is stubborn, uncertain. She weighs the danger of what lies ahead, the unknown versus the relative comfort of her temporary home. Lori pulls a hank of hay away from the door, and Dolores sticks her head through the small round opening, gives the world a look-see, newness everywhere, challenges galore. Nah, she retreats inside. She has been through a massive ordeal, trapped and jostled and incised, and she longs for the way things were before any of this nonsense. Back when she was comfortably connected, easily mobile. The past is gone for good, and Dolores hasn't quite caught on. I get it. I want to go back too, but we can't. The wild unknown beckons. What the hell do we do next? How will we respond? Watch Dolores to see how it's done. She comes to the threshold once more, hesitates, and just like that, she's out like a shot. Thanks.
Thank you, Anna Maria. Hey, you know what's fun? Raffles are fun. Right now we have a raffle at Jennifer Fishtrap's Jennifer Hobbs has put together a really cool list of raffle prizes that are inside the lodge. If you haven't bought a raffle ticket yet, I recommend it. It's 5 each or 6 for $25. There are 9 prizes to choose from. They include lots of cool stuff from local Wallowa County artisans and shops. There are signed books from our instructors, Summer Fishtrap instructors, and the big one is a free registration to Summer Fishtrap next year. So it's worth $5 to take a chance on that dance. You can get your tickets in the lobby, and we'll announce the winners on Saturday. Do you need to be present to win, Jennifer? Okay. Pick up that free registration to Summer Fishtrap and take it home. We also have 2 silent auction items. One is an encaustic painting. Anybody know what encaustic painting is? Those paintings that are kind of covered with beeswax, have that kind of cool ethereal quality to them. By local artist and Fishtrap board member Leah Svensson. It's a print, and there's a silent auction going on right as you enter the lodge. And also a couple staying at the lodge, not participants in Summer Fishtrap, but they were just staying at the lodge. And they were so impressed with you folks that they donated 2 bottles of wine from their winery, from their vineyard. And so they're up there too. I think it's Hell's Canyon Winery. Check it out in the lodge. Okay, let's get to our next reader. Longtime friend of Fishtrap, Laura Pritchett. Laura right now is launching her 2nd year-long writers workshop group, which means that she and a group of writers are meeting here at Summer Fishtrap this week and then staying in contact all year long and working on their books, working on their manuscript with the goal. And then they'll meet here next year in 27 with the goal to have completed a manuscript by the end of the year. It's really an intense group, and it needs somebody with a great bedside manner, and nobody has better bedside manner as a writing coach than Laura Pritchett. Laura Pritchett's fiction is rooted in the natural world and celebrates the people who live close to it. She's the author of 7 novels, 2 nonfiction books, and editor of 3 anthologies. Her work has been the recipient of the Penn USA Award, the Milkweed National Fiction Prize, the Willa, the High Plains Book Award, and several Colorado Book Awards. She's also a freelance writer with publications in the LA Times, the New York Times, Orion, Terrain, the Colorado Sun, Salon, Creative Nonfiction, and more. She holds a PhD from Purdue, and she directs the low residency MFA in nature writing at Western Colorado University, one of the few graduate programs dedicated to writing about the natural world. Please welcome Laura Pritchett.
I love being here. I'm going to set my timer. I don't make much of a secret of the fact that Fishtrap's my favorite writing workshop that I've ever been to, so I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so honored to be reading with the 2 other readers this evening, dear friends and wonderful souls. I'm so honored to be part of this Fishtrap, who many years ago, I don't even remember, 20, hired me. They were the first writing organization to take a chance on me and let me teach. So honored to have the participants, to meet all of you, and so honored to know all the faculty, and thanks to all of the staff and support and volunteers. There's so many good people. In fact, when I saw the announcement, the flyer come with the logo and the story, the American story, a word popped into my mind, integrity. And I thought, that's what I want for this nation. And then I thought, Fishtrap's full of it, full of integrity. That's the word that comes to mind when I think of this place. So thank you. So I usually read fiction or nonfiction, that's what I write, but I'm writing my first craft book, my very first craft book. And so I thought I'd read from that because we're all writers and you're interested in the craft of writing. And so I haven't ever read it before. It's coming out in 2027 or 2028, I'm not sure yet. But I thought I'd read that. So it's called Writing for the right now it's called Writing for the World, Experimental Form and Technique for Nature Writers, or Nature Writing and something, we're working on the title, but that you get the gist. And so this is from chapter 1, Welcome, Brave Writer, all of you. 1, nature. 2, writing. 3, breaking the rules without getting arrested. These are the great loves of my life. If you are picking up this book, my guess is that they might resonate with you too. It's easy to love nature, whether it be a bird in Brooklyn or the vast expanse of a seashore or mountain ranges. And it's equally as easy to love words, whether rendered as fiction or nonfiction or poetry or hybrid. And rules, well, they are meant to be broken, and I'm sure you agree. I do happily follow rules that make sense. I drive the speed limit, and I wish other people would too. Cars are dangerous. That said, when we were teenagers, my younger brothers and I would sneak out of our rural Colorado farmhouse at night with bolt cutters and drive all the way into town to the high school and cut the lock on the gate into the parking lot, which, when opened, allowed a secret access. The school officials didn't like this gate being open. They thought it created a dangerous traffic flow or something, and I'm guessing that they were right. But students liked it open because in the morning, we could get to the back of the lot quickly, park, and run to class in less time, which means, of course, that we could sleep in a little longer. And as we all know, sleep is the priority of teenagers. The students appreciated our illegal activity because they benefited, although selfishly, I'll admit that we probably did it for ourselves. I do see the irony here. We lost sleep by waking up at midnight to cut locks in order to save sleep in the morning. But what can I say? This is the way of teenagers. And I guess I should be sorry about the rule breaking, but I am not. Eventually, the school had to put up cement parking barriers, and those we left alone because our criminality had limits. Although we did blow up other stuff, but not at the school. But I hope you can see that I am a good soul, and I was trying to save people time because the school's rules made everyone grumpy and late. I was and am good of heart, and despite my criminal past, I hope you will still read this book because it contains everything I know to be true about breaking the rules of writing, stretching into new territory, delighting in some fun and playful forms, and truly I hope to save you some time too. Time is our greatest wealth, I've heard it said, and as a writer, I think it's true. If we can save a little time here or there, learn something efficiently, it means we have more time to write what we wanted to write. Sure, I also believe truly that no writing is wasted. It is all in service of our craft. But I also believe this can have limitations. We can dink around forever and not really write or finish that piece that mattered to us very much. I've been teaching for a while now, and I can't tell you how many students have contacted me later and said, "Your lecture on point of view or tense saved me about a year." Or, "It's because of that lecture on characterization that I was able to find the plot of this book." And you have no idea how I love hearing such words. The fact is, I believe craft can be taught, and there's a lot of it to teach, and that is why I myself love craft books. Perhaps saving time allows you to write more pieces or simply have more fun or be less frustrated. Perhaps we can enjoy writing with efficiency and inspiration. So I guess there are 4 things I really love: nature, writing, breaking rules, and saving people time. Perhaps this last point is true because I feel I fruitlessly wasted lots of my own time. In my early days of writing, back in my 20s, I would rewrite entire novels, moving them from first person to third, or from past tense to present. I didn't understand plotting. For one novel, Stars Go Blue, I spent a year writing the final 100 pages, only to have my editor immediately cut them one day after receiving the manuscript. And he was right. Not all that time was wasted. I learned a lot about tense and point of view, for instance, but I did feel that not all that time was needed to learn these said lessons. I'd like to have a few years of my life back. Looking back on the arc of my writing life, I wish I'd had someone like me, except better than me, and I'm sure they were out there, and I did have some wonderful editors who, tried to help me. So don't get me wrong, they're out there, but I did need someone to say, hey, try this, or learn this, or have you thought about that? So as my students know, I try to inspire, to teach, and to save time. But the other thing I firmly believe is that there are craft lessons that can be taught. Writing well is not willy-nilly, floating thing that gets granted to some people and not others. There are not singing angels or floating muses that help just some people out. No. Just like violin playing or basketball shooting, there is a skill involved, and it can be studied, fostered, practiced, and mastered. You have to do the work, but having a teacher can help. This comes as a surprise to people, especially non-writers. Case in point, most of the time I teach graduate students who are earning their MFA in nature writing. So they are a self-selected group of people who are obviously eager to be taught. But occasionally I teach classes of other lovely populations, both inside and outside of academia, such as here. And in those, sometimes those are in another department. And then I go on to tell a story about how the director of the Masters of Environmental Management class, the MEM program, took my program, and she was like, wow, I just really didn't know that creative writing could be taught, like we teach sciences. And I was like, yeah, you can. So it's just a little story about that. So I go on to talk about, I think the value of being at places like this and learning, and how much I have learned from mentors. And then I just want to read a little bit from chapter 2. It's a beautiful day on a beautiful planet, writing for Mother Earth, because I think so many of us are doing that here. So not only do I want to be a rule breaker and a good teacher and a good human, I want to be a good steward of our gorgeous planet. She's the only one we've got. I start off many of my classes with a welcome. It's a beautiful day on a beautiful planet, because I want to remind everyone, myself included, that despite the woes and frustrations of our lives and the very real sorrows and grief about what is happening to our planet, it is indeed a crazy miracle that we are on this spinning ball in space that has just the right temperature and light and gravity and mixes of hydrogen and oxygen and all the matters of rights needed to sustain life. And it's another miracle that we're all here together in this one blink of time. I also happen to believe that the Earth is under great duress. Predictions are dark, and we know it to be true. One of the many things we can do about it is write. Whether our writing is celebrating the beauty we see, bearing witness to the destruction, protesting, educating, exploring, generating a call to action, or whatever you wish it to be, writing for Mother Earth is an endeavor to be respected and celebrated. Indeed, I believe that nature and writing are two terms that feel as urgent and worthwhile as ever right now. Everything became more urgent for me in the summer of 2020, when I was having the worst summer of my life. Do you remember that summer? I was not alone in this bad summer experience. This was, as you may remember, unless you've blocked it out, which is totally understandable, the early and scary moments of the pandemic. On top of that, what became Colorado's largest wildfire was burning right outside my house. Our home sits at the base of a mountain, so evacuees were streaming by with stock trailers loaded with goats or horses or belongings, and non-human, more than human, evacuees were coming in too, marmots and mountain lions and bears, dislocated and homeless. Ash was coming down on our heads, helicopters were hovering over our heads, and the whole thing was a stress mess. I did what I always do when I am freaked out and scared. I started writing. Obsessively. My wrists ached and my back hurt, but I could not stop, and I did not have any of the usual life interruption to force a stop. Like so many, I hardly traveled that year, even when I wanted to desperately escape the hazardous air quality. States were shutting down roads and restaurants. No one knew if traveling would kill you, and I wasn't sure where to go anyway, although I did actually think about coming here. I was like, this would be such a sweet spot. The next year, I also stayed put, not straying far from my couch for another reason, which was a terrible case of COVID. I couldn't have moved even if I'd wanted to. It went on for nearly a year, and it was emotionally and physically hard to push myself up a hill that I've walked for decades of my life. Day by day, I walked a bit further, asked my lungs and my energy to sustain me, and that whole experience, too, was a depressing drag. Again, I wrote and I wrote and I wrote. I read and I read. I stared out my window, and like so many, I became a better birder, a more frequent cloud gazer, a noticer like never before, since nature was providing solace and entertainment. And thus reading, writing, and the outdoors became the holy trinity of my life. I suppose these three things have always been my trinity, but they became all the more so. It was 2 complete years of obsession with 3 things. And then I talk a little bit about how the need in me to hone my thoughts about why fiction and nonfiction weren't responding or could better respond to climate chaos started to solidify in my mind. And I started writing the 2 books that are for sale in there, Playing with Wildfire and The 3 Keys. I'll skip ahead a little bit. I am forever repeating my favorite Annie Dillard lines, which serve as the foundation for this book. The writer knows her field, what has been done, what could be done, the limits, the way a tennis player knows the court, she writes. And like that expert, he too plays the edges. That is where the exhilaration is. He hits up the line. In writing, she can push the edges. Now, courageously and carefully, can she enlarge it? Can she nudge the bounds? And enclose what wild power? Exactly. That's what I believe in. Writers need to push the boundaries. We need to find the wild power of words for wild things. And then I go on to quote a few other authors that I admire. And then I say, we must and can push the budges, nudge the boundaries, either in form or in content or in both. Climate chaos and our planetary problems are so huge, and we need many ways in. Our love for this planet and environmental and social justice are so huge, and we need many ways to offer stories of our love. Through brave experiment of form or through characters who are brave of heart, perhaps we can find some solutions, or at least imagine new ways to live on and love on planet Earth. And then, because of yesterday's panel, I'll just say a few more words. I have a different segment called What Does Nature Writing Even Mean? And so I'll just read a tiny bit from that. I want to spend a moment discussing the phrase nature writing. I'm frequently questioned about these 2 words. Whether humans are nature or cities are nature, is what I'm writing nature writing? And often people tell me that the phrase is old-fashioned and dead and offer up instead replacement phrases. But I mostly stick with nature writing because nature is an encompassing word for the general focus on the natural world, which includes humans, as well as mountain ranges and slot canyons and oceans and suburban and urban landscapes. And on top of that, black squiggly marks on a page of paper is what we are doing and what you are doing. So nature writing is a term I prefer, but it always also begs the question of what even is it, or what is it now? And what do you think of when you hear the term nature writing? Emerson, Thoreau, Muir, Romantics? Is it the stuffy, pretentious, or privileged works mostly written by men off tramping by themselves in the wild? Or is it distant, and then I quote a few people who complain about how stuffy it is? I say no. While I agree that in some academic courses and in some writing books, we are still celebrating the humdrum, voiceless work. Not that those authors were, I make that clear. Those were foundational authors that I really admire. I would argue that nature writing has evolved tremendously, and we are getting the sciences, natural history, explorations of the past, present, and future of this planet in more exciting ways than before. And I believe there are huge, and I mean huge, paradigm shifts in the field of place-based, environmental, or nature-based writing. One could argue that nature writing is America's one unique contribution to the literary canyon, and many people have argued just that. True, there has been a long tradition of celebratory focused poetry and prose across the globe for a very long time. The Greeks, the Romantics, haiku poetry. But it's been reasonably argued that it became a bona fide, recognizable genre in America. And yes, when people think of the foundational authors, they think of the ones I just mentioned. And then I point out that, as many have rightly pointed out, there are plenty of early and lesser known, but should have been equally famous women, underrepresented voices, and I go on to talk about all of that. And then I say, this is only to say that there has always been others doing some heavy lifting in the scaffolding of this genre. So I think we can agree that the feel of nature writing has been, well, let me just actually skip this part because I was taking a little while to get through this. I'll have to edit my book. No. But here, of course, our focus is on pieces that are not only nature-based but experimental. As a novelist and essay writer, I've often decided to tell my story in a standard narrative, by which I mean what some would call traditional ways, cause effect, forward moving through time, and I really do love that kind of writing. But as I mentioned, I've also embraced novels and stories and essays and hybrid works in which experimental or innovative form with a strong environmental ethic are my go-to. Either way, I want my writing to feel quite urgent, the eco-ethics clear and bright, reflecting the truth about megafires, climate change, and I want to keep pushing boundaries. Why? Because I believe that from destruction comes renovation, from grief comes change. After all, necessity is the mother of invention, and we are finding it necessary, I think, to find new ways to live on and speak about and for planet Earth. So I continue to be inspired by the world's kick-ass and spunky nature writing. And that's what we're going to do, and we're going to take some bolt cutters to the writing rules. So, thank you. Thanks. Thank you so much. That's what I'm working on now, and I just wanted to read one paragraph of my novel, Three Keys, because that's one of the pieces that came out of that episode I was just talking about. So this is chapter 1, the opening to Three Keys, and just a tiny bit of it. How quickly she'd become animal, how fast the feral had descended. The upkeep of her body seemed beyond her, hair tangled, teeth filmy, a real need to shower. It was absurd how fast a foggy lonely had descended too. How exactly was she to occupy herself for the next 3 months, not to mention the rest of her empty, empty life? Amelie ate a pear with one hand, her driving hand, and combed her hair with the fingers of the other as she drove past the dried grass outside Cheyenne. Empty, empty, empty. She jerked her fingers through the graying tangles, dry as the grass outside, which she'd done for most of the entire drive from Chicago. Finger combing was simply not the same as with a brush, which she had forgotten to pack and then subsequently forgotten to buy on each of her stops. She'd had the seemingly brilliant idea to grab an extra plastic fork from the cafe in Chadron, Nebraska, but it broke nearly immediately after trying to use it in her unruly hair somewhere right on the Wyoming-Nebraska border in a town called Ditch Creek, which was as absurd as the fork. Was it a ditch or was it a creek? How could its status be so poorly defined? She was acting kind of crazy and she knew it. Self-awareness was not reserved for the highly educated white collars of the world, though she suspected they thought otherwise. Anyone with half a plastic fork tangled in her hair should get some help. Anyone who'd left her humble but comfortable home in a rush in order to not let reason seep in, well, that person was not well. She didn't care. She could care less. She could care less than caring because she'd hit rock bottom, end of a rope, a place where maxioms or axioms or whatever. Oops. That's my alarm to stop talking. Stop, alarm, stop. Stop, stop, stop. There. It's only 3 more lines. She could care less than caring because she'd hit rock bottom, end of a rope, a place where maxioms or axioms or whatever one called phrases about phrases no longer applied because the world no longer made sense. Bits of sweetly worded wisdom simply did not apply to chaos. Last night, prone in her sleeping bag in her car, she'd listened to a podcast about people who had experienced a recent breakup or death of a partner and how they had reduced executive functioning. She snort laughed at the truth of that. Yeah, her neural and behavioral changes were wildly evident. No MRI images were needed here. Her husband was dead, her son launched, a job she liked gone, a world running amok, a planet lurching through space and being mistreated all the way. Without a doubt, her brain was not working right. But the real mystery was, how did others continue to pierce the fog with clear and focused thoughts? And why could she not be one of them? So thank you. Thank you. So she heads off onto a journey, breaking into people's homes, because that will solve everything. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
I just walked by Janice and she said, "It's a good book." And I predict the craft book will be popular and inspire a new generation of nature writers. Go talk to Laura Pritchett and Anna Maria afterwards. Before we get to our next reader, a couple of things. All week long, you've been hearing this phrase, fish trappers. If you're a fish trapper, the fish trapper program. Well, do you know what a fish trapper is? Are you fish trapper curious? It's a thing that we came up with. We couldn't even think of a better name, but maybe it is a great name. It's our sustaining member program for as little as $5 a month. You can help support fish trap programs throughout the year and even get discounts on events and workshops throughout the year, and also the warm, happy, fuzzy feeling of supporting this great organization. And each night, people who are fish trappers have been able to enter their name. They get a green card and a green thingy, and get to pull out a present, a gift, a thank you. So here comes Jennifer Hobbs to pull out the new one.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, I can't
You
hold
ready?
it in, but
Drum roll, yeah.
yeah. Oh boy, this is a tough. Okay, got my glasses on. Abby Braithwaite. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jennifer Hobbs. Okay, we're going to get to our third reader now. How many of you, raise your hand if you were at Tim's Craft Talk today? Quite a few of you. Oh man, maybe a third of you. Tim Z. Hernandez, first time he came to Summer Fishtrap was 2018. Did anybody see his reading back then when we were at the Methodist camp? Quite a few of you, and you came back for more. Tim Z. Hernandez is an award-winning author, performer, and documentary filmmaker. His work includes fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, and he is the recipient of the American Book Award and the International Latino Book Award. His work has been featured in the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, C-SPAN, NPR's Latino USA, and many others. In 2018, he was recognized by the California Senate for his research on locating the victims of the 1948 plane wreck at Los Gatos Canyon, the incident made famous by Woody Guthrie's song of the same name, which is chronicled in Tim's book, All They Will Call You, and the sequel, They Call You Back. Hernandez holds an MFA in Writing and Literature from Bennington College and is an associate professor with the University of Texas El Paso's bilingual creative writing program. He lives in El Paso, Texas, with his 2 children. Give a big welcome to Tim Z. Hernandez.
Thank you so much. Thank you also, my fellow readers. It's always nice to be in the company of such wonderful writers and people. I want to dedicate my reading to my wonderful workshop attendees who just continue every day to be bold, to share their life experiences, and and just to be bold, in general, it's just a very powerful thing to share our stories and to entrust one another. And I don't take that for granted. So thank you all, my fellow workshoppers. I also want to dedicate this reading to the littlest of my family's babies, Adeline Marie Elizondo. Let these words carry you, mija, to the ancestral realm now. May you be an angel that protects us all. Here are some American stories. Estimado hijo, here is the photograph I promised you, the one we took together on your 6th birthday. Remember when I told you this river is like a balm, and you thought I said a bomb? This bridge we appear under is timeless. Someone in the future will look back and call this monotone, but it doesn't mean one color. There is a shadow and dark here, and at our age we stand somewhere between the two. This is the terrain we come from. When I say we, I really mean you. In the end, that's all that matters. I said I would never leave you, but I will be gone one day, así como el río, pero no son los mismos. There are things I need to tell you. For instance, el desierto, the desert, it is within us. This vastness is our inheritance. We cannot separate ourselves from these layers of sediment. Remember the house we built with our own 2 hands? It is why to this day you still grow nostalgic for the color blue. Some homes demand much of us. They require more than just our care. I guess the word I am looking for is loyalty. In some cultures, the color blue means protection, or buena suerte, or prosperity. In some cultures, the scent of roses is more than love. It is dangerous. Wherever you find yourself, hijo mío, know this. Regardless of what God says to you on Sunday mornings, we get more than one go-round, more than one chance. Believe me when I tell you. I will return, no matter how long it takes. In the pale blue evening, in the sudden whip of a horse's tail, in the painful stillness of a desert day, I will be back. Until then, take these memories, hijo. Take these photographs of our land and the people, our people, these stories, these broken notes are all that will be left of us. This too is your inheritance. I am reading from different books. This one is Brave River. It just was released like a month ago. So that's a poem from that one. This is a poem called Father of Clarity from Some of the Light. It's a poem I wrote for my daughter during the pandemic. Each day is the same now. I wake her up. She is a woman in the making, and me, I am still a boy, given this responsibility of another. And my boy is visiting his mother 1,000 miles away. We drive to school each morning discussing the state of all things, how she will need to use my razor blades for my legs, she says, and armpits, except she doesn't say armpits, she says, for under my arms. I mentioned the color of the sky at 8:15 a.m. being something like the color of her eyes seconds after she was born. She responds by asking me what verisimilitude means. And I tell her, look it up. These are the particulars. These are the particulars of raising Rumi, not like when we would once hold hands and write our names in the snow, not like when she would fall asleep in the bicycle seat tethered to my back as we rode down Colorado pathways. No, this is El Paso, Texas. It is the face without makeup. We cannot hide behind hiding any longer. The dry cycle never seems to dry the first go-round. Living alone is learning to speak for both sides of the conversation. God, isn't this true? And God replies, it is only verisimilitude. Lately, I don't have much to say except I wish I could go back to Hejira and that one rainy cafe in Asheville, North Carolina. I wish I could go back to the beginning of the beginning again, try like a video game, hit the reset button, throw a love tantrum, force round pegs to fit my square anatomy. I've always wanted a kitchen with a view of both sides, and now I've got two, El Paso and Ciudad Juarez. See here, the mountain preaches with an accent. It says, La Biblia es la verdad, léela. See here, the river howls in American twang. It says, go back to where you came from. Between the two, a chaparral bows, and it says, "This is not what brotherhood looks like." But these aren't the conversations for Rumi. She reminds me of this. She told me how she held up the bird last night, unnamed still. She said she trained it to land on her finger, how it returns to its cage when it flies too far. But me, I am the opposite. I return to flying when I am too far in the cage. She has always been a friend soul to me, more than a daughter. The hierarchy is this. I make her eggs with arugula and toast. She eats them. We attempt yoga some mornings. There is a peacefulness in our routine. We don't speak ever. We don't speak about the day when all of this will be nothing more than a poem. Thank you. Sometimes I wish this country would just leave our boys alone. The talk. This is a talisman for my son, Salvador. In here, my son, when I give you consequences, you can trust it is from love. It is not from hatred or some misdirected hostility over the angle of your cheekbones, or because you are invisible and therefore discardable, because you are too visible and therefore a threat. Each time I ask you to pick up after yourself, take you by the hand, pull you to the shower, each time I say to you, Salvador, this is how you properly sweep a floor. This is how you fold your clothes. This is how you make a bed. This is why you say goodnight. This is why you kiss the cheek for friends, the mouth for love. When I tell you no means no, it does. This is how you speak to people with respect and your elders with reverence. This is why I cannot let you get away with small words like shit or damn or fuck, and why I practice these words away too with great care, and why I blow it at every opportunity. Because in here, my son, you are a loved boy. In here, I handle you with care and tenderness and correct you with purpose. I'll allow you the space to fall and fail and cry and ask questions without answers and guess without shame and live your mistakes out loud without judgment and still consider you in here a warrior. But out there, my son, out there, love doesn't come so easily. Out there, they will not exercise patience with you. Out there, they will have made up their minds about you. Out there, they'll have seen 100 boys who look like you and sound like you and move like you, and they'll know exactly what to do with boys like you. They must have even once been you, but were never taught their own value or didn't have a safe place like in here to turn to when threats appeared. Out there, small words like shit or damn or fuck will get you posted at the fence during recess, will get you a busted lip at a gas pump, will get you chased, get you cornered, get you before a judge, and they'll say, consider yourself lucky, boy. Out there, they got no love for a dark-skinned brown boy with black hair, black pupils, and light in his eyes, joy on his face, confident with his place in the world. Out there, how easily they forget that you're somebody's son. They don't know, how could they, that when you were born, you spent 3 months in a glass case. All we had then to connect with you was voice. All we have now is voice. So we sang to you. Your mother and I whispered good night and good morning and came to rely on the invisible as I am relying on it now. If I speak this into being, I imagine the universe could not be so as ironic as to target you. These words, this paper is my offering to the malign deities of fate, this tender and beloved child of your country, this youngest brother of 3, the son of a Mexican mother and father who finally found his way, this boy, the endling of Hernandez men who walks the sidewalks and dirt paths as a human worthy of dignity. Let him walk, let him stumble, let him fall and rise up. Let him carry the burden of his own errors. Give him room to evolve. Give him room to grow and shrink, correct himself, but please give him room. No, out there is not in here, my son. Out there they will not call you by name, will not honor the history of your 3 regal syllables. Sal, salt of the earth, your inheritance. Va, to go, to fly. Dor, the door, the opening, an invitation. Walk through it. Say your name with me, son. Salvador, Salvador. Will they know what it means? Do they know that it means Savior? Will you know? Are you listening to me? Thank you. These are some American stories. Flying parallel. While driving home from work this evening, a hawk flew parallel to my window. In its talons, a baby squirrel was tousling, its wide black eyes alert to the situation as the ground fell beneath them. Another bird, smaller in size, came to the squirrel's rescue, pecking the head and back of the hawk. They were parallel to my window. The squirrel's tail spun as if a disengaged propeller ascending between two cliffs. On one side, there were the crags of sure death. On the other side, a small glimpse of what it means to be reborn. Parallel to my window, there were 3 lives, mid-flight, each of them arguing about their differences, none of them prepared to let go. Thank you. I think I'm going to turn to They Call You Back. This is just a short excerpt from a story, from one of the stories. This is a story of my grandfather. One normal afternoon, my grandfather is driving home after a long day of working in the fields. He's already dropped off most of the workers, and he's driving his 16-passenger van eastbound on the outskirts of the town of Dinuba. There are just 3 more workers he still needs to drop off. As he approaches the intersection, he begins to slow to a stop when a truck rams him from behind, forcing his van across the center divider into oncoming traffic. To avoid smashing head-on into a vehicle, my grandfather spins the steering wheel from the road and launches his van into an irrigation ditch. The van hits nose first, and my grandfather hears a loud pop that comes from his back. His van rolls over end to end, tossing the other 3 passengers like sacks of potatoes. When it comes to a stop, my grandfather calls out their names. Slowly, each one answers. 2 are trapped beneath the seats, broken and crying in pain. Years later, when I ask him about it, my grandpa tells me that he was just glad they were all alive. As for him, he'd broken 3 vertebrae on his back and was bedridden for months. And it's this accident that marks the beginning of the end for my grandfather. Soon after, he isn't digesting food properly, so they harvest a piece of his stomach for testing. Resigned only to liquids, his dentures are removed. He eats less and begins to shrink. His diabetes worsens. His toe has to be amputated. Little by little, I watch my grandfather disintegrate, until finally, in the last year of his life, he's diagnosed with cancer. I went to visit him at the hospital in his final days. We spoke, and I recorded him with my small audio recorder. When he asked my Aunt Hilda to get his turquoise watch from his pants, that's when I knew it would be the last time I saw my grandfather. He handed me his watch, and he said, "Here, mijo, it's your time." I was 32 years old, and I took the watch from his trembling hand, and I put it on my wrist, where I've kept it ever since. Sitting there at his bedside, I recalled the countless accidents I had seen firsthand across the San Joaquin Valley, the back roads littered with altars. I thought about the dusty crosses and the small offerings left behind, balloons and plastic flowers, sometimes a photograph, and often a name would be scrawled on a crossbar: Martinez, Hernandez. So many names. I felt pulled by the mystery of each one. Who are these friends scattered like dry leaves? What happens to their memory once the names fade, I wondered. Perhaps it was the void left by the mystery of my uncle, my mother's little brother, Betito, and the fact that we could never find his grave. Each time we drove past these roadside altars, my parents would cross themselves out of respect, a gesture I still practice to this day. In a matter of days, my grandfather was gone. It was July of 2006, 4 years before I would ever hear about this tragic history of the plane wreck at Los Gatos. But the concerns were now there, planted within me, germinating. Questions began forming. I returned to the writing. It was the only way for me to make sense of it. The night my grandfather died, words came to me. I was hurting and angry, and I needed to interrogate, so I wrote a letter to the landscape. I sat down, and I furiously scribbled these questions in my journal. San Joaquin Valley, why are your back roads stricken with altars and your plastic carnations entombed among deflated balloons? What keeps the tattered photographs from disintegrating with the dew? And who dies in the back of a narrow farm worker van, limbs splayed to the heavens? Who survives? Who arrives first? And who will harvest those bodies? And who recalls them in a dream? How does one return the belongings? When names fade, where do they go? What country will claim the purgatoried? Who inherits this wreckage? How deep is the ravine of a child's memory? Are there two sides to the swallowtail's account? How do we count the invisible? Can angels scale border walls? Who will open the gates for them? Who denies them? What manner of love is this? Thank you. I think I'm just going to close. I'm going to close up here with an anecdote. Whose water was this, by the way? Awesome. Actually, I'm just going to close with this little anecdote, this little thing that occurred, and I thought a lot about it ever since. So in 2015, when I was working on the plane wreck at Los Gatos research, I had traveled for the first time into central Mexico looking for families. I spent 2 weeks. The first trip was about 2 to 3 weeks. And I had stayed at the home of a family of a gentleman named Miguel Perez, Don Miguel Perez, Don, out of respect. And I stayed at his home, and he was an octogenarian, about 85-ish. And he had been a bracero worker back in the 40s. He was, had a contract to come to the United States and work. In fact, he was working, I think he was working up in Weed, out here. He had told me this story. And so I was sitting at his home on the last day. And I had hung around the whole community, interviewing everybody, talking to everybody. So we sat down for breakfast on the last day, and he said to me, he looks over at me as he's eating his frijoles and his coffee, and he looks at me across the table, and he goes, "So you're leaving now, huh?" I go, "Yeah." And he says, "Did you get everything that you needed here? Did you get everything?" In Spanish, of course. I said, "Yes." He says, "You interviewed everybody. You talked to all the people here." I go, "Yes, Don Miguel, thank you, I did. I talked to everybody." And he goes, "Okay, they told you all the stories already, right?" And by now I start to think like maybe he's joking with me because I know my grandfather used to joke with me that same way. Like I would take him serious, and then I'd find out I was the butt of a joke. So Don Miguel says to me, "Did they tell you all the story?" I go, "Yes, Don Miguel, they told me all the stories, yeah." And he says, "Did they tell you the story of El Caballo Raro?" And I said, "El Caballo Raro?" He says, "Yes, the rare horse, the prehistoric horse. Did they tell you the story?" And I said, "No, Don Miguel, what's the story?" So Don Miguel, this is in 2015, he tells me this story, and the story goes like this. He says, in 1991, there was a farmer here by the name of Daniel Cardenas. And it was the night after a torrential rainstorm, and everyone was looking at their fields, all the farmers here. And Daniel Cardenas is walking home on the pathway in the cobbled road, and he sees that one of the stones is upturned, so he decides to go and put the stone back into the hole. And he looks down into the hole, and he sees something that looks like a large bone. So he starts to pull stones back out of the ground, and he starts to reveal this giant skeleton. And by then, the other farmers are there, and in their small community, the farmers are going, "Daniel, what the hell are you doing? You're messing up the road." And he says, "I think I found something." So all the farmers are looking down, and they're going, "Yeah, that does. It looks like let's pull back the stone." So they're pulling all the stones out. Finally, they reveal what looks to be, what they all agree on, looks like a horse. Except, and they're really proud of their knowledge of horses. They're horse people. They're like, "We are from Guanajuato. We are horse people. We know horses," And they're very proud of that fact. So they look down and they go, "This looks like a horse, except the front legs look a little shorter. The skull is a little elongated. The hind legs look a little longer. So maybe it's a prehistoric horse?" So someone says, "Go get La Maestra." So La Maestra is the first woman who went off to college at the university in Guanajuato and returned and became a school teacher, so they call her La Maestra. That's just what she's known as. Her name is Diana Garcidueñas. So they rush over, they call La Maestra. She comes back, she looks down into the hole, and she says, yeah, this looks like a prehistoric horse. So they're like, we knew it. Awesome. And then she says, "But I'm gonna I'm going to call my colleagues at the university, come over here and take a look at this to make sure it's okay, good. So she calls her colleagues, and then all of a sudden, within hours, you have one of those old VW buses, loaded with paleontologists from the university, and there's 4 paleontologists, and they all arrive, and they come out. By the time they get back to this hole in the ground, the whole community of Charco de Pantoja in Guanajuato is all surrounded this giant hole in the ground, and they're excited. They're excited, and there's already rumors. They're going, you remember that old myth about horses being from Europe? Bullshit. Horses are from Mexico, and they're from our town. So they're really excited about this horse, this prehistoric horse. So the paleontologists arrive. The crowd parts way. The paleontologists look into the hole. They do a little bit of talking to each other, and then they come to the conclusion. They say, yes, this is a prehistoric horse from the Pleistocene era, from the Ice Age. And in fact, we're very excited because this is the most intact specimen we've ever seen. We've seen pieces of it here in Mexico, maybe a phalange over here and a skull over there, but this is intact. The only thing it's missing is one little pinky or something like that. It's like one tiny bone it's missing. So the crowd is excited. Yeah, we knew this was a prehistoric horse. So then the paleontologists have a little conference back over here. So they turn around, they look at the whole community, and they go, we need 9, 10 strapping gentlemen to come get into this hole and help us do the work of excavating the ancient horse so we can put it in our van and take it back to the lab for testing. And the entire community goes silent. And then they look at La Maestra, and La Maestra looks at the gentleman, and the gentleman, the paleontologists say, let's have a little conversation to La Maestra. They all gather around. So they turn back, they look at the audience, and La Maestra says to the audience, to the whole crowd of people, these gentlemen say that if we help them get the horse out of the ground and put it in their van and take it for tests, they'll return the horse when they're done with the tests. They will put it in a glass case and include signage so that it's displayed here for all time and it's a part of our history. Everybody goes, yeah! And the 9 strapping gentlemen appear. They all go down into the hole in the ground, spend hours all day long sweating. There are photographs and video recordings of this moment. And they pull this giant horse, this ancient horse, out of its bed. They lift it up, and they load it into the back of the van. You see photographs, all these guys loading this horse into the back of the van. They shut the van door. The van drives off. Everybody says goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And they say goodbye to the horse, and they never see the horse again. So Don Miguel Perez now looks at me across the kitchen table, and he goes, maybe you can help us find the horse. And I said, Don Miguel, what makes you think I can find horses? He says, well, you found us. And then I thought he was kidding, but then he says to his daughter, Dulce, he says, Dulce, after breakfast, put Tim on your motorcycle, take him to see La Maestra. So she puts me on the back of her motorcycle, and there we go through the cobbled streets of Mexico, and we get to La Maestra's house. We open the door. La Maestra's there to greet us. She opens up this giant filing cabinet, pulls out this file, sets it on her table. Boom. She goes, here's the horse file. Good luck. Good luck. These are all the papers, records, and everything we've ever had on the horse. I've kept them. So what else could I do? I took the horse file, took it home with me, got in the airplane the next morning, flew back to El Paso, Texas. And on the flight home, I kept thinking, why would Don Miguel tell me this story of the horse? What was the purpose of telling me this story? I kept trying to find meaning in it. And I don't know if this is what he was, to me, this is all I could come up with. I think it was Don Miguel's way of telling me that whatever you've come here and taken from us, bring it back. And so I offer that to conclude here, because Fishtrap has personally given me so much, so much. So coming here every year that I get invited is my own way to give back. I appreciate that so much, to be a part of this community, and may it continue. Thank you all so much, okay? Have a good evening.
All right, thanks everybody. This has been great. A couple notes before we all go out for the night. First, all three of our readers tonight will be in the lobby here at the Book Loft. Remember that if you purchase books from the Book Loft gives 20% back to Fishtrap, so that really helps out. And you can get it signed and have a conversation. Important notes on tomorrow. In your schedule, it says that 7 a.m. Chip Blake is going to do a bird walk. And he's going to do it in partnership with a state park ranger that you're going to meet here and then walk over to the state park and see things like dippers and all these birds over here. Chip lives on the East Coast and he's a big birder and is excited to see some of the birds of the Pacific Northwest. Also, we've had a schedule change. Tomorrow's 1:30 craft talk with Kim and Perrin is now moving to Saturday at 1:30, and Karen Alvanen's graduating year-long class are going to do a featured reading tomorrow at 1:30 right here, and so the craft talk with Kim and Perrin will be on Saturday. And finally, tomorrow night's readers, for all of you out here in the crowd, we have Chip Blake, Beth Piatote, and Kim Stafford. We'll see you then.